Hey, this is Makarov owner. I have a Geeetech a10m my wife got me for Christmas, and just began to make some printouts with it. And so I have like the jaws of a dinosaur that I reduced down to 25%. It's actually a toothbrush holder, and that's what it's printing at 100% right there. Kind of interesting. It's like a 7-hour print to get complete. And my first successful print was Yoda, and it's not perfect, but it is Yoda, and I'm pretty happy with it being the first thing that I actually got done that actually worked. So I just wanted to make a little video to explain a few things that I found very quickly. One of the things was on Yoda here, if you look at the bottom end, he's got a nice wide flat base. And this one did also. When I pulled it off, the base came off, but it was a nice wide flat base. And that guy does too. When we look over here, shine a light, you might be able to see there's some lift to the piece. I'm printing in ABS, and it's able to flex and lift, and that puts pressure against that head. There's a little head right in there, and that guy, if it gets too much friction on it with the plastic, you can get loaded up with plastic and then have a problem. So most of my failures have been from the ABS warping, or a problem with it sticking to the bed. So I've also had some no heat issues, and up here's a feeder. You see this is a 2-line. You can actually do multiple colors. I haven't done any of that yet. But back here on this feeder, there's a sensor right back there where the little wire goes. And I think, I'm not being an expert, I'm a novice obviously, I got 2 successful prints. If that sensor isn't moving, then I believe it's going to trip a fault down here on the control panel, which basically is going to shut down the heat. So I'm going to go over here to my desk. So over here I'm in Cura, and I'm monitoring the print process, and down here it's showing that you have 7 hours and 14 minutes or 15 minutes to do the entire print, and I've got 4 hours and 8 minutes left to go. I don't know if that one's going to be able to print out 100% because the warp might cause failure. It might just rip it off the base. We're going to find out. Had lots of failures of that type. Up here it has extruder heat and our build plate heat or temperature. I found on the Geeetech 250 is your max heat. It'll trip it off at 250. But my material likes to be a fairly high heat range, so I'm trying to run it at 245, and that seems to be working. And also the same thing with the base plate. If I run cooler temperature, then it doesn't want to stick to the plate and the material. I just keep having material failures, so I'm running at about 100 degrees. And another thing I would show over here, I'm going to bounce around a little bit. It's going to make it hard, certainly hard for me figuring this stuff out. So there's my preview. Down here, this little multicolored angle tells, how should I explain this? That tells your machine where to center. So it's possible if you tell in an option, you click a box where my pointer is, it'll say centered there. So this triangle box moved more like to the center, but then your material will not build centered on the plate. It will actually be like off the plate or just into one corner section. So I can't open up that screen right now to show. But basically, I would have to go into settings and show that. Basically, I'm using the default settings, and then I saw somebody else say that if I go into, let's see, let me take a look at my notes. Sorry, I wasn't quite prepared for that. So, extruder 0.5 on the Z-hop, not more than 0.5 on the Z-hop, or you had problems. I tried reducing the inner wall thickness and also the speed, and that made that inner wall a little bit too thin. I don't know if there was a whole lot of benefit from that, but anyway, the other thing was too, this machine comes with, it's supposed to come with software, and it tells you where to download it on the internet, but it does not work with my computer. It's basically, you have to plug in the USB to the front of your computer, and the program that I downloaded says that it doesn't recognize the USB port. And I tried doing all the fixes for it with drivers and all that, and all I do is keep getting failures. So other people had mentioned Cura. There's some other programs out there. I tried 2 or 3 different programs, as well as the program it was supposed to come with. Like I say, the one it came with was a total failure. I can't get it to do anything because it doesn't recognize, although it loaded to my computer, it doesn't recognize that I have a machine connected because of that USB problem. It's coming up with a USB port 25 or something like that, and I don't know, it's very frustrating. So far this has been a very time-consuming, difficult process to learn for somebody that's not, I'm really not all that tech savvy. I'm very much a carpentry, hands-on shop guy. So when I get into doing computers and stuff like this, it takes a different level of patience than that I normally deal with. It's stepping outside of my zone, so to speak. But it's you know, life is full of challenges, and I you know, I'm going to learn a new one. So anyway, I hope this helps. So the main points I'd like to say is, you know, skip that program that it comes with, because honestly I think it's a waste of time and it's highly frustrating. So go into Cura and then adjust the settings. If you're using ABS, take your temperatures up. I tried some PLA. I had some feed problems with the PLA. It didn't recognize that the material was getting down there basically, and got an auto shutdown heat error. So you have to, if you get the heat failure, you have to turn the machine off and then restart, and then it'll come back in. Some other problems that I had was the machine, when you start up, if it doesn't stick to the plate, or if it does stick to the plate, it starts going. So let's say that you build up and you get to 5/16 or 3/8 of an inch in height. It can break loose from the plate because of warpage or whatever, and then it just starts scooting your piece around like a little wafer, building up plastic, making more of a mess. That's a problem. It loads up the nozzle on the outside. That's a problem. Hairspray works as suggested. Somebody else, a couple videos had suggested spraying hairspray on the bed. I didn't have any success at all until I sprayed hairspray on the bed. you know, anything with skinny legs or a narrow base and a heavier top, at least at this point in time, I'm going to avoid, because I think it has a tendency to break that material loose off the bed. And you know, the other thing is, well, there's lots of other things, but if you're watching your piece as it's being built on the bed, if the material is not sticking and it's just scooting around in those initial layers, you've had a failure. There's no sense in continuing to let it run. Just shut it down and you know, go from there, because you're just wasting your time and your effort for something that's already done. If we get into the settings up here on the screen, you can see that there's a preheat right there, and right here. So one's for the bed and one's for the extruder. So every time that the machine shut down, it drops those temperature numbers down. It automatically starts to drop. So that's frustrating. Let's say that you have a piece that's queued up. Well, you can't just run it because your bed is dropped down to 50 degrees and your extruder is dropped down to 150. It has to heat the bed to full heat before it starts to heat the extruder. But what you can do is you get in here into the monitor and you press, what I mean is the monitor tab up here, and you press your preheat selections, and then that will heat up, and if you're ready to go or close to ready to go, you can continue working on the other screens where you're prepping your models without losing your heat. And or if you have another one that's ready to go in and you've kept that heat up, you can just automatically shift over without having to wait a long time for the heat to build. Anyway, those have been helpful to me. It seems like there's a whole lot of little quirks to this, and trying to identify which hiccup is the one hiccup is a little bit difficult. But it seems like if your nozzle loads up, or if it doesn't stick to the bed, or it trips for heat, I think tripping from the heat is because it's either not feeding the material, like the PLA didn't feed down, or you've got excess material because of a failure down at the printed item is building up material around the head, probably because of warpage, and then it'll trip, or it breaks loose off the bed and just starts scooting around on there like a hockey puck loading up with more plastic. That's a problem. Obviously, you've had a failure, so you might as well shut down. So it seems like there's a whole lot of reasons to shut down. But this is a toothbrush holder for my son, Matthew. And you're going to see in about 4 more hours if it's going to be successful or not. I may well be asleep, and I may wake up and find out that we've had a failure and the machine is auto shut down, and I don't think the lift is any worse than what it had been, and I don't think it's breaking loose. Another thing is the see all the egg crate looking stuff in there? That seems to be on all my prints, and the outer skin is very, very thin. It's not solid. I mean, some parts are solid, like those circles are very solid, but any of the thicker parts are all hollow, which, you know, is fine, but if you're looking to build a more sturdy part, you're going to have to figure out at some point in time how to overcome that. And for this, it's not important, but it probably helps reduce warping, having it like that. But anyway, have a good night. Thanks for watching.